Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and good to see you here. And it's just a beautiful autumn day. So during the last few Saturdays, we've been discussing this Mountains and Waters Sutra. Sutra voiced by the mountains and waters. It's a composition of Master Dogen from the 13th century. And there are some, I thought I would address one aspect of this that may give rise to confusion for us. These themes that Dogen uses throughout the fascicle, throughout the sutra. Green mountains walking, eastern mountains traveling on water. And there's another theme that will come up today, a stone woman giving birth. So I think it's helpful to know that these images, these themes were not entirely out of Master Dogen's imagination. They were really kind of memes at the time. They were tropes that had been used for centuries among Zen teachers. So we'll go to that just a moment to first of all, going back to a passage that we've already discussed. When Dogen is quoting priest Daokai, and priest Daokai says, the green mountains are always walking, a stone woman gives birth to a child at night. The green mountains are always walking, a stone woman gives birth to a child at night. And Dogen invites us to investigate that, to think about that in detail. How do we think about it? Another portion of this sutra that we haven't gotten to yet quotes Master Yunmen as saying, eastern mountains travel on water. And Yunmen was in the 10th century, a couple centuries before Dogen. And the context of this is someone asks, what is the place from whence all Buddhas come? And Master Yunmen said, where the east mountains walk on the river. Where the east mountains walk on the river. And this would have been a quote that probably Dogen's monks would have been familiar with. Master Yunmen, in a little poem, says, steeply Mount Yunmen rises. Master Yunmen lived on, he was named after the mountain that he was had the monastery on, where he was abbot. He was named for the mountain. That wasn't uncommon. Steeply Mount Yunmen rises, leaving the white clouds below. Its streams rush so quickly that no fish dares to linger. So the mountain is surrounded by clouds below. And then there's a poem from the 6th century, a Buddhist poet named Fu Dashi. So now we're going back 6 or 7 centuries from Dogen. And this poem is recorded: where the east mountains float on the river and the west mountains wander on and on, in the realm beneath the Great Dipper, just there is the place of genuine emancipation. Where the east mountains float on the river and the west mountains wander on and on, in the realm beneath the Great Dipper, just there is the place of genuine emancipation. So likely Master Yunmen was familiar with this poem. Fu Dashi was an iconic poet in Chinese culture at that time. And interestingly, there are places to this day where the mountains are referred to as floating mountains. In Hunan province of China, there is a park, the Zanjiaji Park, where there are what are called floating mountains. The mountains seem to just float in air or on the mist. The mist, of course, being water vapor. Mountains floating, and it's surprising, but upon these mountains there is abundant vegetation, trees and bushes, grasses that manage to survive in these tall column-like mountains. So with that as a little background, I think for us these themes are, just new. They don't know what. We're not familiar with that cultural context in which Dogen was writing. So we'll go into the next section of the sutra. Oh, I should mention this. I mentioned to mention this is a stone woman, and actually such figures, figures of women are the earliest figurative art that we have, that we know about in human history, and these figures go back beyond, longer than 30,000 years ago. They've carbon dated these figures of women, and all over the world, really, including in China. This one comes from Turkey, and it's actually a figure of a woman giving birth. So this notion of a stone woman is something that is deep in human culture. How these figures were used and what significance they had for the people who carved them, we don't really know. So the section we're going to look at a bit today is starts off this way: Green Mountains master walking, and Eastern Mountains master traveling on water. Accordingly, these activities are a mountain's practice. Keeping its own form without changing body and mind, a mountain always practices in every place. So here the green mountains and the eastern mountains that are traveling, moving, walking, are practicing. This is their practice. This is a mountain's practice. Dogen is not above shaming his students, and this is an example. He says, don't slander by saying that a green mountain cannot walk and an eastern mountain cannot travel on water. When your understanding is shallow, you doubt the phrase, green mountains are walking. When your learning is immature, you are shocked by the words flowing mountains. Without fully understanding even the words flowing water, you drown in small views and narrow understanding. Yet, he goes on, the characteristics of mountains manifest their form and life force. There is walking, there is flowing, and there is a moment when a mountain gives birth to a mountain child. Because mountains are Buddha ancestors appear in this way. Yet the characteristics of mountains manifest their form and life force. There is walking, there is flowing, there is a moment when a mountain gives birth to a mountain child. Because mountains are Buddha ancestors appear in this way. So I think from what my understanding at this time, Dogen's project, in large measure, is to disrupt our usual way of looking at things, to widen our worldview, our field of view. Talks about taking the backward step. And taking a backward step allows you to see more context, allows you to see a wider perspective. So he's interested in a way, shocking his students into another way of seeing the world, seeing their surroundings, and also encouraging them to learn, encouraging them to experience and learn from their surroundings, how to live in the world authentically, how to live in the world authentically. So he plays with our mind, but he's not just playing with our mind. He's playing with it for a purpose, to allow us to reframe space, to open up, and to rescale time, not thinking only in minutes and hours and days, but thinking in vast expanses of space and time, beyond our usual narrow, often egocentric human perspective. So who is the mountain child? I would say that one way of looking at this is that the mountain child is she who partakes in the mountain's awakening, who participates with the mountain in authentic being, who takes a step back and receives the 10,000 dharmas. So, using the image here of a mother and child, it sort of can be transposed into the relationship of a teacher and student. The mountain, in this case, being the teacher. And us being the students, who can learn from the mountain authentically expressing itself, being a mountain, taking its place, without pretension, without artifice, playing its role. So Dogen goes on, and I'll just read this portion. And it's a little bit long, but not too long. And I think it's a consistent theme throughout, which can be summarized. But he goes on, even if you see mountains as grass, trees, earth, rocks, or walls, do not take this seriously or worry about it. It is not complete realization. Even if there is a moment when you view mountains as the seven treasures being, gold, silver, agate, and various, precious stones. Even if you view the mountains as seven treasures shining, this is not returning to the source. Even if you understand mountains as the realm where all Buddhas practice, this understanding is not something to be attached to. Even if you have the highest understanding of mountains as all Buddha's inconceivable qualities, the truth is not only this. These are conditioned views. This is not the understanding of Buddha ancestors, but just looking through a bamboo tube at a corner of the sky. Turning an object and turning the mind is rejected by the great sage, Buddha. Explaining the mind and explaining true nature is not agreeable to Buddha ancestors. Seeing into mind and seeing into true nature is the activity of people outside the way. Set words and phrases are not the words of liberation. There is something free from all these understandings, and that is, green mountains are always walking, and eastern mountains travel on water. You should study this in detail. So in that section that I just read, Dogen is sort of listing all of the common pat phrases that are used to describe awakening or kensho or enlightenment. And he's saying, don't get caught up in those phrases, those concepts. But listen to the mountain stream, experience the mountain itself. And in this case, Dogen is focusing on mountains and waters, but we can focus on anything. It's all out there. Albert Schweitzer is someone who inspired me when I was younger. And he talked about reverence for life. Ehrfurcht von dem Leben, reverence for life. I think Dogen here is talking about reverence for everything. To, in a sense, consider wherever we are and whatever we're doing, considered a sacred space. Approach objects, mountains, rivers, buildings, streets, other people, plants, everything with that kind of reverence. And that's, I think, Dogen's version of viewing things as they are. And in doing so, living life authentically. So I guess one last image here. The Prudential Life Insurance Company has been around for a long time. It was founded in the mid-19th century. And this, on the left here, is the logo for Prudential. Their initial logo, I think, was 1860 or thereabouts, whenever it was. And you can see this sort of image of a mountain framed in this Victorian frame, and it has their sort of motto on it. The Prudential has the strength of Gibraltar. The Prudential has the strength of Gibraltar. On the right is their current logo. Around the turn of the century, they omitted that little phrase on top of the mountain, because at some point they realized that the image of the mountain itself was stronger than their motto, that the motto somehow distracted from, the words interfered with appreciation of the image itself. And of course, they modernized the image and opened it up a bit and got rid of the Victorian frame. But I think Dogen, in this final portion of the reading, is encouraging us not to get stuck in the words and phrases, in the sort of pat language that is so easy to get caught up in Buddhist literature, but to really look at our own experience right now. Look at our own experience right here and work with that. Investigate it. So how does changing our perspective change the world? It does seem to, and maybe we can think of examples where we've experienced a change in perspective, a reframing that changed everything. That's one question. Does that sound plausible? Is that familiar? And why are we so attached to our favored perspective is another thing. Why do we keep coming back to it? Why, even though it may not work? What is the nature of that attachment to the small view that we unfortunately can keep coming back to? And is it reasonable to expect meditation to help us widen our view, change our perspective, open up, see the greater context? So those are things that might seed some discussion, and I think I'll leave it at that, and we'll break up for small groups